My son Marcus raised a glass to my birthday, and with a smile he called my life useless. The guests fell silent, and he simply left me there, humiliated. He didn't know I was planning to surprise him that night with a $2 million home, something I'd worked my whole life to save. His words cut through me like a knife, slicing years of sacrifice into shreds. But that evening wasn't the end. No, it was the beginning. I decided Marcus and his cold wife Kasia would pay for their neglect. My revenge wouldn't be quick, but it would be just, and I already knew where to start. The restaurant had been buzzing a moment before, filled with the clink of glasses and forced laughter. But the air turned heavy when Marcus raised his glass. His words still hung there like smoke, choking every breath in the room. I gripped my wine glass, the stem cold against my palm, and forced a smile that felt like it would crack my face in half. The guests, a mix of Marcus's business friends and a few old neighbors, stared at their plates, avoiding my eyes. Silence screamed louder than any insult. Marcus leaned back in his chair, smirking, his tie loosened like he'd already won. Kasia sat beside him, her diamond earrings flashing under the chandelier light. She sipped her wine, lips curling just enough to show she enjoyed the show. My chest burned, but my voice stayed low and steady. "You done?" I asked. Almost a growl. He laughed sharp and mean. "Done? Pops, I'm just getting started. You sit there acting like you're some kind of saint. But what do you really got to show for it? This?" He waved his hand toward the restaurant table, the half-eaten cake with "Happy 62nd" written in icing. "You a nobody." Always been the words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. Not yet. I thought of the deed sitting in my jacket pocket, a house paid in full. $2 million, my life savings, meant for him and Kasia. It was supposed to be my gift, a way of giving Marcus the stability I never had, now that paper felt like a stone in my pocket, heavy and useless. Kasia leaned forward, her voice smooth as silk. "James, we don't need your approval. We've earned our place. You—" She paused, her eyes flicking over me like I was lint on her dress. "You're just here." I set my glass down. The clink echoed like a gunshot. "I was going to give you something tonight," I said, my voice calm, though my pulse hammered. "A house, paid in full. But after this—" I looked from Marcus to Kasia. "Forget it!" The whole room froze. A woman at the next table gasped. Marcus's face twisted, his cheeks flushing red. "You lion!" he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. Wine sloshed from his glass, staining the white tablecloth like blood. "A house? You too cheap to buy a new car?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The truth was in my eyes, and he saw it. His rage boiled over, and he stood, knocking his chair back. "You pathetic old man, always playing the victim. I'm done with you." Kasia grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. "Let's go, Mark." "He's not worth it." She shot me a look, cold, dismissive, like I was trash left on the curb. They stormed toward the door, Marcus's shoes squeaking on the polished floor. The door slammed behind them, the sound sharp as a gunshot. The guests muttered, eyes low. The waiter hovered, unsure, then started clearing plates. The table was a mess. Crumpled napkins, half-eaten food, and that damn cake no one touched. I sat there alone, the tick of the restaurant clock drilling into my skull. 62 years, and this was my reward. A son who spat in my face, a daughter-in-law who saw me as a relic. I paid the bill, my hand steady despite the storm inside. The night air hit me as I stepped outside, cool and sharp. I didn't go home, not yet. I walked. The city lights blurred as my mind churned. Marcus's words replayed, each one cutting deeper than the last. But something else stirred inside me. A memory, faint but clear. A promise I once made to myself. The house was too quiet when I finally walked in, the kind of silence that presses on your chest. I sat in the living room, the only light coming from a lamp that flickered every time the wind rattled the windows. In my lap was the family photo album. the leather cover worn smooth from years of handling. I opened it, and there we were, me, Monica, and little Marcus, smiling at some long-gone church picnic, his tiny hand clutching a balloon, his grin wide enough to melt steel. I traced the picture with my thumb, smudging the edge. Where had that boy gone? My mind slipped back, uninvited, to the day I sold my old Buick. It was a beat-up thing, rust on the doors, but it ran, and it was mine. Marcus was 18 then, accepted into a college we couldn't afford. I stood in the driveway, watching the buyer drive that car away, the cash in my pocket feeling like betrayal. That money paid for Marcus's first semester. That night he hugged me, his voice thick with promise. "I'll make you proud, Pops. I'll pay you back." And Lord, I believed him. God help me, I believed him. I flipped another page. Marcus at graduation, cap tilted, smile cocky. I'd worked double shifts at the firm, crunching numbers until my eyes burned, just to cover his tuition. When his first business fell apart, that tech startup he swore would change the world, I bailed him out, wired him 50 grand without hesitation. He called me his hero, told me he'd never forget it. The album felt heavier now. My hands turned another page, and there was Monica's funeral. Marcus stood apart, checking his phone while I shook hands with mourners. He didn't stay long, just mumbled something about a meeting, then left me standing in that empty church alone. I hadn't cried that day. I didn't know how. The silence in the house grew louder, broken only by the creak of the old floorboards. I closed the album, my fingers lingering on the cover. All those years I told myself it was worth it. Every late night, every missed vacation, every dream I shelved, they were all for him, for Marcus. And what did I get? A son who called me a failure in front of strangers, a daughter-in-law who looked at me like I was already dead. My gaze drifted to the wall, to the clock Monica loved. Its ticking was relentless, each second a reminder of time I couldn't get back. I stood, the album sliding to the couch. Enough! I'd spent too long waiting for Marcus to be the son I raised. He wasn't that boy anymore. Maybe he never was. I crossed the room to my desk, the floor cold under my socks. My laptop sat there, the blue light harsh as I opened it. My hands hovered over the keys. I didn't know exactly what I was searching for, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't about to sit in this silence anymore. Not tonight. Not ever again. The laptop's glow lit my face, casting shadows on the walls. The clock on the shelf ticked steady as a heartbeat, pushing me forward. I typed Marcus Carter into the search bar, my fingers deliberate. His name popped up, tied to a string of business deals, each one shakier than the last. One headline caught my eye. Local entrepreneur faces scrutiny over unpaid debts. I leaned closer, a grim smile tugging at my lips. Marcus was in trouble. Good. I scrolled, piecing together the mess he'd made. His latest venture, a so-called fintech startup, was bleeding money. Investors were pulling out. I remembered him bragging about it last year, all swagger and big promises. I'd warned him it sounded shaky, but he'd laughed me off, called me old school. Well, here was proof he'd overplayed his hand. My mind flicked back to a moment 2 years ago. Marcus, sitting across the table, bragging about a deal he called bulletproof. I'd asked simple questions about cash flow, contracts, accountability. He snapped, told me to stick to my boring spreadsheets. I let it go. I always let it go. Not anymore. I grabbed my phone and dialed an old friend, Darnell, from back when I worked as a financial consultant. He picked up on the second ring, his voice gravelly but warm. "James? Man, it's late. You good?" "I need a favor," I said, keeping my tone even. "Marcus's business." "I want the details." Off the record, Darnell paused, then chuckled. "Your boy been playing with fire, huh?" "I've heard whispers. Give me a day. I'll dig. He's not my boy anymore," I said, the words sharper than I meant. Darnell didn't push. Just promised to call tomorrow and hung up. I set the phone down, my pulse steady for the first time in hours. pulled a notepad from the drawer, the paper crisp under my pen. I wrote, Marcus, debts, bad deals. Then another line, Keisha, image, social media. She was an influencer. Her whole life a curated lie on Instagram. I knew her type. People who lived for likes, not truth. Her weakness was as clear as Marcus's. The pen scratched across the paper as I jotted ideas. Quiet moves. Nothing flashy. I wasn't some cartoon villain. This was about justice, about showing them I wasn't the nobody they thought I was. I'd spent decades building a life, a fortune, while they squandered theirs. They underestimated me. That was their mistake. I stood, walked to the study door, and closed it. The click was solid, final. The room felt different now, not a refuge but a war room. The clock ticked on, but it didn't bother me anymore. It was counting down to something new. The library smelled of old paper and dust, the kind of scent that clings to your clothes. I sat at a corner table surrounded by stacks of financial journals, their pages yellowed and brittle. My laptop hummed softly, open to a database of business filings. Marcus's name glared back at me from the screen, tied to a sinking ship of a company. I jotted a note, over-leveraged, investors fleeing. My pen scratched against the paper, the grip worn smooth from years of use. I'd spent decades analyzing numbers, spotting cracks in deals other men missed. That skill, dormant since retirement, woke up now with a vengeance. Marcus's business was a house of cards, big promises, no substance. One article buried in a trade journal detailed a shady loan he'd taken to prop up his startup. The terms were predatory, the kind that bury you deep. I smiled thin and sharp. He'd always been reckless, but this was a gift. My mind flicked to a dinner last spring. Marcus, wineglass in hand, bragging about a bulletproof deal. I asked who the lender was. He snapped, told me to mind my business. I let it go, paid for his wine, like I always did. Never again. I pulled out my phone and called Darnell. He answered in a low voice like he was in a meeting. James, you're obsessive, he said, half joking. What now? Tell me about Marcus's loan, I said. The one from that offshore outfit. Darnell sighed. It's bad. High interest, tied to some shady firm. He's missed payments. Word is they circling, and there's talk of an ethics probe. Numbers don't add up. Good, I said, my tone flat. You sure you want to go down this road? He asked. I'm sure. Darnell promised more details and hung up. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me. An ethics probe. That could ruin him. The library was quiet, save for the hum of a fluorescent light. I crossed to the copier, feeding it the article about Marcus's loan. The machine whirred, spitting out pages that felt like ammunition. Back at my table, I shifted focus to Keisha. Her Instagram was a shrine to perfection. Designer bags, curated brunches, smiling posts about a life she didn't live. But the comments told a different story. Brands pulling away, whispers about inflated followers, one crack in that polished mask and she'd crumble. I stacked the documents, slid them into a folder and checked the clock. 3:17 p.m. time was moving. So was I. The wind howled outside, rattling the library's glass doors. I stepped into the chill, the folder under my arm, and headed to a cafe down the street. The corner booth was dim, the kind of spot where nobody looks twice. My laptop screen glowed, a VPN masking my tracks. The air smelled of burnt coffee and stale pastries. I typed carefully, crafting an email to one of Marcus's investors, a man named Hargrove, known for cutting his losses fast. The subject line was simple: concerns about your investment. Attached were scanned copies of the loan agreement and that damning article. No signature, no trace, just facts. I hovered over the send button, my finger steady. This was it, the first cut. I thought of Marcus's smirk at my birthday dinner, his voice calling my life wasted. He laughed then. Let's see him laugh now. I clicked. The email vanished into the ether, a silent arrow aimed at his heart. My mind drifted back years. Marcus at 25, crowing about his genius. I'd warned him about shady partners. He brushed me off. "You stuck in the past, Pops," he said. Stuck? Maybe, but I knew how to play clean and quiet. Skills he never learned. My phone buzzed, snapping me back. Marcus's name flashed across the screen. I let it ring twice, then answered, my voice calm. "What? You bastard!" he hissed, words slurring with rage. "You sent that email, didn't you?" Hargrove just pulled out. "My deal's tanking." I leaned back, the vinyl booth creaking. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. "Sounds like your mess caught up with you." "Don't play dumb!" he shouted. A crash echoed in the background, glass shattering, maybe a bottle. "You trying to ruin me?" "You're doing that yourself," I said and hung up. My pulse was steady, my hands cool. I checked my inbox. A reply from Hargrove's assistant blinked at me. "Mr. Hargrove is reviewing the materials and has paused all commitments." Perfect. The cafe clock ticked toward evening. Marcus's threats echoed in my ear, but they were empty. He was scrambling now, and I was just getting started. Keisha was next. Her sponsors wouldn't like the truth I'd found. I closed the laptop, the screen fading to black. The door jingled as I stepped outside, the recorder in my pocket heavy with promise. The night was mine. The knock on my door was sharp, like a hammer on steel. I knew who it was before I even opened it. My hand brushed the recorder in my pocket, its red light already glowing. The living room was dim, lit only by a flickering lamp that cast long shadows against the walls. I opened the door, and there they stood. Marcus, face red and twisted with anger, and Keisha, her eyes cold as ice. The scent of her perfume, sharp and floral, drifted in with them like an insult. "You gone too far," Marcus spat, pushing past me before I could answer. His shoes scuffed the hardwood, leaving streaks I'd have to clean later. Keisha followed, her heels clicking steady, purse clutched tight against her side like a shield. I closed the door behind them, the click loud in the tense air. "Sit," I said, gesturing to the couch. They didn't. Marcus paced the room, fists clenched, while Keisha stood rigid, her lips a thin line. "You tanked my deal," Marcus growled. "You playing dangerous. Hargrove's gone, and now the bank calling. You owe me, Pops. Fix this." I crossed my arms, my face steady as stone. "Owe you?" I said. "After what you said to me? After you called me nothing?" Keisha stepped forward, her voice smooth and practiced. "James, let's be reasonable. We're family. You don't want to hurt Marcus's future, do you?" Her smile was fake, her eyes sharp, calculating. "Family?" I said, my tone cold. "Family don't humiliate each other in front of strangers." Marcus slammed his hand on the wall, the sound sharp like a gunshot. "Enough games. Give me the money to cover the loan, or I'll make sure everybody knows what a selfish old man you really are." I didn't flinch. The recorder hummed silently in my pocket, catching every word. "You not getting a dime," I said, my voice calm, deliberate. "You made your choices." Keisha's mask slipped, her voice sharp, venomous. "You pathetic, James. Hoarding money while we struggle. You ain't no real father." She turned toward Marcus. "Let's go." "He's useless," Marcus glared, his breath heavy, ragged. "This ain't over," he hissed. "I'll bury you." He stormed toward the door, Keisha trailing him, her heels stabbing into the floor with each step. The door slammed shut behind them, the sound echoing through the house. The clock ticked, steady, relentless. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the recorder. Its red light still glowed. I pressed play, their voices filling the room. Marcus's threats, Keisha's venom, every ugly word caught clean. My lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. This was gold. I carried the recorder to my desk, setting it beside my laptop. The screen lit with a soft glow as I opened a new file. Marcus and Keisha thought they could bully me, break me down, use me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The lawyer's office was cramped, the air thick with the smell of ink and old coffee. Papers leaned in stacks across the desk, and a window AC unit rattled like it was fighting for its life. I slid a USB drive across the desk to Richard, my old friend and part-time legal counsel. His grey eyebrows lifted as he plugged it into his laptop. The clock on the wall ticked steady, each second a reminder that time was my ally now. I leaned back in the creaky chair, my notebook open, its pages filled with my neat handwriting. Every line was a step, every step a brick in the wall I was building. Richard pressed play. Marcus's voice came, through sharp. His threats. Keisha's voice dripped poison. Richard's frown deepened with every word. "This is dynamite, James," he said, pausing the audio. "But dangerous. You sure you want to play this game?" "I'm not playing," I said, my voice low, steady. "They crossed a line." "I'm just evening the score." Richard rubbed his chin, nodding slowly. "All right, we can use this, but no fingerprints, anonymous leaks, third parties. You too close to this to take the hit directly." He scribbled notes on a pad, pen scratching quick. "What's the endgame?" I didn't answer fully. My plan was a mosaic, each piece falling into place. The recording to break Keisha's image, pressure on Marcus's creditors to tighten the noose, years of financial discipline, my weapon now turned against my own blood. "Just make sure it's airtight," I said. Back home, the house was silent except for the hallway clock, its ticking steady as a pulse. I sat at my desk, notebook open. Step 1. Alert Marcus's creditors about his missed payments, using public records to nudge them into action. Step 2. Leak Keisha's recording to a rival influencer hungry enough to expose her. Each line was a brick in the wall, each brick closing them in. I thought of Marcus's birthday toast, his smug grin, as he called me worthless. The memory burned, but it fueled me too. I'd given him everything, my money, my time, my dreams. And Keisha, with her polished cruelty, stood by him every step of the way. They thought I was weak, a relic. They'd learn how wrong they were. The phone rang. Richard again. His voice was firm. "The creditor letters are ready." "No trace to you. We send them tomorrow. They'll be on Marcus like vultures." I thanked him and hung up. My pulse was calm, my breath steady. The envelope sat on my desk, addressed to a loan officer who'd never know my name. I picked it up, its weight solid, final. Tomorrow, the first domino would fall. The morning light filtered through my blinds, painting stripes across the table. I sipped coffee, its bitterness sharp, and unfolded the newspaper. The headline screamed, "Local entrepreneur faces financial ruin." Marcus's name in bold. His photo grainy but clear. Head down, dodging cameras outside his office. I set my mug down, quiet satisfaction spreading through my chest. The clock ticked, each sound a nail in his coffin. I'd mailed the letters 2 days ago, a carefully worded tip pointing creditors toward his unpaid debts. Public records, nothing traceable. They moved fast, demanded repayment, froze his accounts. Richard was right. The vultures were circling now, and Marcus was bleeding. The newspaper headline was just the start. Within hours, Marcus's name spread across social media like wildfire. Screenshots of the article bounced from one timeline to another, hashtags piling up, memes mocking his empire. I leaned back in my chair, the wood creaking beneath me, watching it all unfold. The phone buzzed. Darnell's voice came through, low and steady. "It's a bloodbath, James." His office empty. Creditors froze his accounts. Contracts cancelled. Lawsuits coming. "Good," I said, flipping the page of the paper like I was reading about someone else's life. Darnell chuckled darkly. "He fighting with Keisha now. Heard him at a bar last night. She was loud, screaming about how his mess is dragging her brand down." I smiled thin. Cracks in the facade. Exactly what I expected. I remembered Marcus at 25, eyes lit with fire, swearing he'd build an empire. I believed him, poured money into his first venture. When it tanked, he blamed everyone but himself. "You too cautious, Pops." Cautious. That caution was my weapon now. The article detailed his fall. Investors bailing, contracts cut, whispers of fraud. I read each word slow, like savoring a fine meal. Every sentence was a brick I'd laid. Every collapse a step closer to justice. Darnell's voice cut back in. No one bailing him out this time. He desperate, begging folks, but the city small, word spreading fast. He's toxic now. Let him beg, I said flat. I clicked open my laptop. Social media buzzed with Marcus's name, his face turned into memes, his voice spliced into parodies. Public humiliation fit him better than the suit he wore to mock me, but Keisha, she was still standing. Her Instagram polished, pretending nothing happened. Designer outfits, fake smiles, captions about grinding through the storm. That wouldn't last. I thought of the recording, her voice dripping venom, calling me pathetic. That one clip would shatter her brand. I searched for the right person. A rival influencer, hungry, bitter, with a grudge against Keisha. Found her in minutes. Kay. She'd been fighting Keisha online for years. The kind of woman who'd torch a bridge just to watch it burn. Perfect. I sent the file anonymously. The recording clear as day. He's useless. He's pathetic. He ain't no real father. Then I sat back and waited. By nightfall, Kay had posted it. The clip spread like fire. Sponsors pulled out within hours, their logos vanishing from Keisha's profile like they'd never been there. Her latest Instagram post, a desperate selfie with smeared mascara, read, "Ignore the lies, I'm still your girl." The comments tore her apart. I leaned back on the couch, the house quiet except for the tick of Monica's clock. For the first time in months, the sound didn't press on my chest. It comforted me. Darnell called again, laughing this time. Keisha's done. No sponsors, no invites. She radioactive. Man, you playing a cold game? No game, I said evenly. Just consequences. After we hung up, I closed the laptop. The click sounded final in the quiet room. I stood, stretched, and looked out the window. The city lights flickered in the distance. Marcus's empire was rubble. Keisha's brand. Was Ash and me? I was just getting started. The knock came hard and urgent, rattling the frame like a warning. My pulse quickened, but I didn't flinch. I knew exactly who it was. I crossed the hallway, each step steady, and opened the door. Marcus and Keisha stood there, soaked from the storm. Rain plastered Marcus's shirt to his chest, his collar wrinkled, his hands trembling. Keisha's makeup streaked down her face, her eyes hollow and red. The smell of wet asphalt and desperation followed them inside. "Dad," Marcus started, his voice cracking. "We're sorry." "We were wrong. Please." He stepped forward, shoes squelching against the porch. Keisha clutched her purse, her knuckles white, her tone soft. Too soft. "James, you gotta help us," she said. "Everything's gone, but we can fix this." Together I didn't move. The memory of Marcus's toast burned in my head. His smirk, his words, "Your life's a waste." I remembered Keisha's cold smile, her voice calling me nothing. Now here they were, broken, begging. "Help you?" My voice was low, even. "After what you did?" Marcus's face twisted. "We lost everything. The business, the sponsors. It's all gone." His hands shook as he ran one through his wet hair. "You did this, didn't you?" "But I'm your son. You can't just destroy me." Keisha touched his arm, her voice smooth, rehearsed. "James, we're family. You better than this. Let's fix it together." Her words were honey, but her eyes betrayed calculation. She wasn't pleading. She was fishing. I stepped back, gaze hard, letting the ticking clock in the hallway fill the silence. "You made your choices. You spit on everything I gave you. Family!" I shook my head. "You don't even know the meaning of it." Marcus lunged forward, his voice rising. "You heartless! You ruined us!" I raised a hand, stopping him cold. "Enough!" Keisha grabbed his sleeve, nails digging in, but her eyes stayed locked on me, searching for a crack. She found none. "Get out!" I said, each word sharp and deliberate. "You're not welcome here." Marcus's jaw dropped, his breath ragged. Keisha's mask slipped, her face hardening. "You'll regret this, James," she hissed, but her voice trembled under the weight of her own lie. I opened the door wider. Rain poured down the steps, thunder rolling in the distance. They hesitated, then turned. Marcus muttered under his breath. His shoulders slumped. Keisha followed, heels splashing in puddles. The door closed behind them, with a heavy thud. The silence afterward was thick, broken only by the steady rhythm of Monica's clock. I walked to the living room, slow and deliberate. On the mantel sat a framed photo of Monica, her smile soft, timeless. I touched the glass, my fingers lingering. "You'd have hated this," I whispered, "but it's done." The weight in my chest eased. For the first time in years, the silence of the house didn't feel empty. It felt final. The sun blazed over the community center lawn, balloons swaying against banners strung across the entrance. A crowd gathered, voices warm and buzzing with excitement. I stood at the podium, the microphone cool in my hand, a bronze plaque gleaming behind me. The Monica Carter Foundation. The air smelled of fresh grass and barbecue smoke drifting from a food truck parked nearby. Children laughed, chasing one another across the yard. In the distance, the old clock tower ticked faint but steady, a reminder of time always moving forward. I cleared my throat. The crowd hushed. "This foundation," I began, my voice steady, "is for families who need a hand up, for kids who deserve a chance at something better. It's Monica's dream." And today, its real applause broke out, rolling through the crowd like a wave. Faces smiled back at me, neighbors, church members, strangers, a few old colleagues. I scanned the sea of people, no Marcus, no Kersha, just folks who believed in what we were building. For a moment, Monica's face flashed in my mind, her laugh bright, her eyes full of plans. She'd wanted this. A scholarship fund, mentoring programs, a place where kids from our side of the city had doors opened instead of slammed shut. We'd never gotten there together. But I was here now, carrying her dream forward. My chest tightened, but I pushed through, shaking hands as people stepped forward. A young mother thanked me, her son clutching a scholarship acceptance letter like it was gold. "This changes everything," she said, her voice trembling with gratitude. I nodded, unable to speak, my throat tight. Paul, one of the organizers, leaned in as the crowd thinned. "Heard your boy's in rough shape," he whispered. "Skip town, they say." I shrugged, face neutral. "That's his story, not mine." Paul nodded and let it drop. The rumors didn't matter. Marcus and Keisha were shadows now, their names whispered as cautionary tales. The ceremony wound down. I walked to my car, the sun warm on my back. The foundation was funded, millions I'd built up over decades of quiet discipline. I never flaunted it, never needed to. Now it was Monica's legacy, carved into stone and memory. The thought steadied me like her hand on my shoulder. At the mailbox near the curb, a single envelope waited. The handwriting was unmistakably Marcus's. My fingers brushed the paper, rough against my skin. I slipped it into my pocket, unopened. Not today, maybe not ever. The clock tower chimed, its notes floating on the breeze. I wasn't ready to hear his words, not when I had finally found my own peace. The memorial garden was quiet, the stone marker for Monica glowing faintly in the fading evening light. I sat on a bench, the cool air carrying the scent of distant smoke. In my hand was the envelope from Marcus, its edges creased from my grip. I'd opened it in the car. His words spilled across the page. Excuses, half-hearted apologies, promises he couldn't keep. "Please meet me, Pops. I can fix this." I shook my head, the paper trembling slightly between my fingers. Fix what? The years of disrespect? The betrayal? The way he spit on every sacrifice I ever made? There was nothing left to fix. I struck a match. The flame caught fast, curling the paper into ash that drifted to the ground. The fire felt right, cleansing, like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. The clock on my wrist ticked steady, a quiet rhythm of days ahead instead of days lost. I thought of Monica and the dream we'd once shared. She always wanted to see Italy. Cobblestone streets, cafes spilling onto sidewalks, music rising in the air. We'd planned it together, but life and Marcus always seemed to get in the way. Now I'd go for both of us. Earlier that morning, I'd called a travel agent, my voice firm for the first time in years. 1 ticket to Rome, I said. Next month. The agent chirped about itineraries, but my mind was already there, walking through history, free. I brushed the ash from my hands and stood. The stone marker was cold beneath my fingers, Monica's name etched deep. "I did it, Mo," I whispered. "I'm free." The words lingered in the evening air, soft against the silence. Marcus and Keisha were gone, faded echoes. Their lives collapsed under the weight of their own greed. I didn't need to know where they were or what came next for them. Their ruin was theirs, and mine was peace. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and deep pink. I walked to my car, gravel crunching beneath my shoes. In my mind, Rome waited, its warmth, its promise, its open road. The clock ticked on, each second pulling me closer. I slid into the driver's seat, the engine humming to life. The road stretched ahead, wide open. For the first time in a long time, I drove without looking back.